For those who don't know, there was a king in history who is considered by many as the richest person who ever lived in the world. He was wealthy not only because he had a lot of gold, but also because he controlled some of the largest gold mines in the world during his time. He also controlled the important trade routes used by merchants in Africa. In fact, because there was so much gold in his empire, when he traveled to Mecca, he gave away a huge amount of gold to the people he met along the way. And because of what he did, the value of gold temporarily dropped in some cities. But what's even more surprising is that he wasn't from Europe, nor was he the leader of a modern superpower. He was a king from the Mali Empire in West Africa, a kingdom that was once a center of gold, trade, and knowledge. And the king I'm talking about here is Mansa Musa. But the question is, how did he become this wealthy? And how was he also able to lead one of the richest and most powerful empires in history? That's what we're going to find out. But before we start the discussion, I just want to ask you for a like and please subscribe to our channel. This is a huge help for us content creators. So let's get started. Before Mansa Musa became known as one of the richest people in
sa pinakamayamang tao sa kasaysayan.
His story began in a great empire in Africa. Musa was born around the late 13th century in the Mali Empire in West Africa. The name Musa in Arabic means Moses. At that time, Mali was already one of the rising kingdoms in Africa. Many traders passed through here because it was in a good location for trade. Musa's father was Fagale. He came from the Keita family, and the Keita family was the one ruling the Mali Empire. But his father did not become king. However, they were among the most important families in the empire. Historians know little about his mother, Kanku. Very little was written about many women during that time. But we know that women also played an important role in their society. They helped in making tools, cloth, medicine, and other important tasks in their communities. Now, to understand how Musa became an important person, we first need to know how the Mali Empire began. Before Mali became powerful, there was another strong kingdom in that area, and that was the Empire of Ghana. For many years, Ghana controlled the trade of gold and other valuable goods in West Africa. Because of this, their kingdom became rich and powerful. But over time, Ghana began to weaken. There was a drought, internal conflicts in the kingdom, and the trade routes also changed. And because of this, it gradually lost its former strength. While Ghana was weakening, another kingdom was growing stronger. This was the Soso Empire, led by Suma Oro Kante. He conquered many neighboring areas and became one of the most powerful leaders in the region. But it didn't take long before someone stood up to him. His name was Sundiata Keita. According to stories passed down through many generations, Sundiata's life was not easy when he was young. He went through a lot before becoming a leader. As he grew up, he gradually united the different kingdoms and leaders who also wanted to end the power of the Soso Empire. After this, there was a great war. In 1335, Sundiata's army and Sumaworo Kante's army faced each other in a battle that changed the history of West Africa. And here, Sundiata emerged victorious. Because of that victory, the Mali Empire was established. From then on, their territory expanded rapidly. They controlled important trade routes and some of the largest sources of gold in the world. And as the Mali Empire grew richer and stronger, a young boy from the Keita family was slowly growing up. And that boy was Musa. And one day he would become the most famous leader of the Mali Empire and one of the richest people recorded in history. However, after the death of Sundiata Keita, the succession of leadership in the Mali Empire did not go smoothly. There were children, relatives, and other members of the royal family who could become the next Mansa, or king of the empire. Because of this, power struggles began. The first to succeed Sundiata was his son, Uli. During Uli's reign, the Mali Empire continued to expand. According to some historians, the empire's control over important trade centers like Timbuktu and Gao grew even stronger. Although there are experts who do not fully agree with all the details, it is clear that Mali remained strong under his leadership. Like many Muslim rulers of that time, Uli also traveled to Mecca for the Hajj, the holy pilgrimage of Muslims. But not long after he returned, he died. From there, the situation became more chaotic. Several rulers came to the throne one after another in just a short period of time. There were people who supported one candidate, while others had their own preferred choice to become emperor. Because of this, conflicts arose within the empire. Despite these problems, Mali remained wealthy, and the reason is simple. They controlled some of the most important trade routes in Africa. The traders who carried gold, salt, cloth, and other products passed through the lands of Mali. There were taxes collected on trade, and there were kingdoms that traded. They were under the empire, which also received people as contributions to its government. And another one of the most important sources of the Mansa's wealth was gold. During that time, there was a great abundance of gold in the lands of the Mali Empire. The large chunks of gold were considered the property of the Mansa. That's why the wealth of its rulers continued to increase. While changes in leadership were happening, there was one person who was gradually expanding the power of the empire. His name was Sakura. He was not part of the main line of heirs to the throne. Because of this, his rise to power was unusual. There are old records that say he was once a slave, but according to other historians, the meaning of the word used back then might have been different, and it was not the same as the kind of slavery we became more familiar with in the following centuries. But whatever his origins were, one thing is clear: he was an excellent leader. During Sakura's time, the Mali Empire expanded even more. Trade with other parts of the Islamic world increased. The empire's territory also expanded due to successful military campaigns under his leadership. More lands came under Mali's control. Eventually, Sakura also traveled to Mecca. However, he did not return alive. Historians are not certain about what really happened to him. There are different stories and traditions that tell various reasons for his death. After his death, power returned to the relatives of Sundiata Keita. Several years passed and a new Mansa rose to power again. One of them was Muhammad ibn Ku. During this time, Musa was already in his 20s and was an active member of the royal court. However, historians know very little about his youth. It is unclear how he was educated. It is also unclear how he gradually entered the highest levels of government. But it is clear that as his influence in the court grew, the Mali Empire also became stronger. And this is where one of the most unique stories in the history of the empire began to unfold. Mansa Muhammad was not only interested in expanding his territory, he was also curious about what lay beyond the ocean. According to old records, he sent hundreds of ships into the Atlantic Ocean in the early 14th century. They carried food, water, and other supplies for the long journey. His order was simple: sail west and find out what was there. The ships were lost for a long time. After many months, only one ship returned. According to its captain, they encountered a very strong current in the sea. It was like a giant river flowing in the middle of the ocean. The captain added that while the other ships continued, he decided to return. But instead of being afraid, Mansa Muhammad became even more interested in the mystery of what was in the West, and the decision he would make afterward would change the course of the Mali Empire's history. While Mansa Muhammad was busy with his dream of discovering what was beyond the Atlantic Ocean, there was another person who was slowly preparing for a bigger responsibility. That person was Musa. Before Muhammad left for his second sea expedition in the early 14th century, he left Musa in charge of the Mali Empire while he was away. In other words, Musa became the temporary leader of one of the largest empires in Africa. This was no small job. At that time, the Mali Empire was already vast. It was made up of many cities, towns, and different groups of people, each with their own language and customs. Because of this, a leader was needed who knew how to listen, make decisions, and maintain order throughout the empire. Musa moved to the Sanyani Palace, the capital of the empire. That was where the center of government was located. Important meetings were held there. That was also where reports from different parts of the empire were brought. While Muhammad was away, Musa handled these tasks There were governors who managed the different provinces, but Musa had the final say on the most important matters. One of the reasons why he quickly gained respect was because he knew how to choose the right people to work for the government. He gave recognition to officials who served well and made sure that the leaders in each province were held accountable. Because of this, governance in many parts of the empire became more organized. There are also historians who say that during Musa's time, more young people from Mali had the opportunity to study in centers of learning in North Africa. During that time, places like Morocco were known for education, science, mathematics, and religious studies. Musa also wanted his fellow countrymen to gain new knowledge that would help their country. As time went by, he became more known as an excellent administrator. He was not known for great wars, nor was it because of conquest. He became known because he was able to run a vast empire. Meanwhile, there was still no news about Muhammad and his ships. Until now, this remains one of the mysteries in the history of Africa. Some historians believe that the expedition drowned or got lost in the middle of the Atlantic. Others suggest different possibilities. However, it's important to remember that there is still no solid evidence proving what really happened to them. There are also stories saying that they might have reached America even before Christopher Columbus arrived. But at present, there is still not enough evidence accepted by most historians to prove that claim. It remains a theory and not a proven fact. What we do know for sure is that Mansa Muhammad was never seen again. He never returned. Most of his ships also never returned. And because of that, the throne of the Mali Empire ultimately went to Musa. From being a temporary ruler, he officially became the Mansa of Mali. But instead of wasting time searching for the lost expedition, he focused on other things. Musa knew that strengthening the empire was more important than chasing a mystery that might never be solved. So he began to build a government loyal to him. He chose advisors and officials he could trust. He maintained the support of the leaders in different parts of the empire. And gradually, he laid the foundation for a form of leadership that would bring Mali to the richest and most powerful period in its entire history. Within just a few years after becoming Mansa, many people noticed the big difference between Musa and some of the previous leaders of Mali. He was known as a leader who knew how to listen. That doesn't mean he was weak. It also doesn't mean he didn't want to use his power, but he knew how to weigh the situation before making a decision. One of the first challenges to his leadership was when there was a misunderstanding among the gold miners in the southern part of the empire. At that time, the miners were very important. In the economy of Mali, they were the ones who dug for gold, which was the main source of the empire's wealth. According to historians, Musa tried to encourage more people to follow Islam, but when there was resistance from some mining communities, gold production was also temporarily affected. Instead of immediately using force, Musa chose to talk and resolve the problem. Because of this, mining returned to normal and greater chaos was avoided. This is an important event because it showed that he can change a decision when he sees that there is a better way to resolve a problem. But don't think that he only used diplomacy. When it comes to the security of the empire, Musa was strict. One of the biggest problems back then was the bandits who attacked the traders. Traveling on some routes was dangerous because there was a risk of being robbed or killed. When traders were afraid to travel, trade slowed down. When trade slowed down, the entire empire's income decreased. That's why Musa took stricter measures against bandits and criminals. Gradually, the main trade routes became safer. More traders began to travel. More goods arrived in different cities, and the government collected more taxes. This is when people began to feel the prosperity of the Mali Empire. As the security increased, business also grew stronger. It wasn't just gold circulating in the markets. There was salt, rice, honey, horses, and many other products. There were even goods that came from faraway places in Africa and the Islamic world. Mali gradually became connected to the larger global trade network. And here lies the true secret of Mansa Musa's wealth. It's not just because they had a lot of gold, but because they controlled the trade routes used by merchants. Just imagine if almost all merchants had to pass through your territory to sell and buy products. You would earn a huge amount from taxes and fees. This is what happened to the Mali Empire. Many routes across the Sahara Desert passed through territory they controlled. The caravans carrying salt from the north and goods from the south had to pass through areas controlled by them. And because these routes were safe, even more traders came. There were towns that became centers of trade. Here, traders from different lands would meet. Here, the prices of goods were discussed. The government also collected taxes here. Aside from the land routes, rivers like the Niger River also played an important role. By boat, products could be delivered more quickly to different parts of the empire. The faster the travel, the faster the trade, and the faster the money entered the treasury of Mali. As the empire grew richer, its army also became stronger. According to some historians' estimates, Mali had one of the largest armies in Africa during that time. There were thousands of soldiers and cavalrymen on horseback. The cavalrymen were important because they could move quickly across the vast plains and deserts. They were used to guard trade routes, defend the borders, and maintain order in the empire. Musa knew that wealth was not enough if you didn't have the ability to protect it. So as the gold in his kingdom continued to increase, he also continued to strengthen his army. With a combination of safe trade, a stable government, and a strong military, the Mali Empire began to reach a level of power rarely seen in the history of Africa. And as his wealth continued to grow, a journey was slowly forming in the mind of Mansa Musa, a journey that would make his name known throughout the world. Even so, as the Mali Empire grew richer, it also continued to expand. According to historians, in the early years of Mansa Musa's reign, he added new territories to his empire. Because of this, the wealth, people, and trade routes he controlled increased even more. To maintain this power, he needed a strong army. Throughout Mali, people held blacksmiths in high regard. They were the ones who made swords, spears, bows, and other weapons used by the army. As weapon-making advanced, the tactics in warfare also improved. There were special units of soldiers that could be quickly deployed to different parts of the empire whenever there was a threat. Rivers were also used to transport people and supplies more quickly. There were also selected warriors who served as the elite force of the empire. They were usually sent on the most important missions and major battles. Aside from the strength of the army, one thing was also important to Musa: his faith. In the year 1324, almost 12 years after he became Mansa, he decided to undertake one of the most important journeys of his life. This was the Hajj, the sacred pilgrimage of Muslims to Mecca. But this was no ordinary journey. At that time, Mali was already one of the richest and most powerful kingdoms in the world. Musa also wanted to show other countries how vast and wealthy his empire was, so he prepared an enormous caravan. According to old records, around 60,000 people joined the journey. This included soldiers, servants, government officials, family members, and other members of his group. Hundreds of horses and camels carried provisions, water, equipment, and a huge amount of gold. Some of the camels carried only gold. As the caravan traveled, it was like a moving city in the middle of Africa. From the capital of Niani, they crossed vast grasslands and eventually reached the Sahara Desert. Here began the most difficult part of their journey. During the day, the desert was extremely hot. At night, it was extremely cold. During the day, they had to find enough water for thousands of people and animals. Despite this, the caravan continued for many months. Finally, they reached one of the most important cities in the world at that time, Cairo in Egypt. In the year 1324, Cairo was one of the largest and richest cities in the world. Many people were amazed when they saw the arrival of Mansa Musa and his enormous caravan. Colorful clothes, expensive jewelry, and a great amount of gold. Most people had never seen such wealth displayed on a journey. When Musa was invited by the Sultan of Egypt, another sensitive situation arose. According to the custom at that time, he was expected to show respect to the Sultan in a way he did not want to do. But through proper communication, they found a compromise that respected both sides. Their meeting went well. They exchanged gifts. They talked about their kingdoms. And while the caravan was resting in Cairo, news began to spread throughout the region about a king from Africa with wealth that was almost immeasurable. And people at that time didn't know yet that what Mansa Musa would do next in Egypt would make his name even more famous in history. After staying in Cairo for several more months, Mansa Musa's name became even more famous. Wherever he went, he gave gold to the poor, officials, merchants, and religious leaders. He distributed so much gold that, according to historians, the value of gold in Cairo dropped for many years. This showed how wealthy the Mali Empire was during that time. In late 1324, Musa continued his journey to Mecca. From Egypt, his caravan crossed the deserts of Arabia until they reached Medina, the second holiest city in Islam. Here, Musa visited important religious sites and spoke with many scholars from different parts of the world. After this, they continued on to Mecca. After a long journey, Musa finally saw the city he had long dreamed of reaching. Like other pilgrims, he wore simple white clothing and temporarily set aside his status as a king. For several days, he performed the rituals of Hajj together with thousands of Muslims from different countries. According to some records, there was once tension between some pilgrims, but it was resolved without leading to violence. After completing the Hajj, Musa received the title of Haji, an honor given to those who have completed the holy pilgrimage. Some stories say that he really enjoyed life in Mecca and wanted to stay there longer. But while he was in Arabia, news kept coming from Mali. There were problems that needed to be dealt with inside the empire, and there was also tension in neighboring lands. Because of this, he decided to return home. Before he left, he invited several scholars, teachers, religious leaders, and experts to come with him to Mali. One of those who joined him was Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, a well-known architect and poet who would later have a great influence on the architecture of the Mali Empire. As they were returning to Africa, the news about Mansa Musa's wealth spread even more. In the markets and trade centers, merchants from Europe, Asia, and Africa talked about the king from Mali who brought with him a great amount of gold. Many became interested in the source of his empire's wealth, but the exact location of Mali's gold mines remained a secret to many foreigners. As they continued their journey home, the journey was not easy. Some members of the caravan got sick. Some also died because of the hardships of the journey and the dangers in the desert. Because he had already distributed a lot of gold during his journey, Musa was forced to borrow money and supplies while in Cairo in order to continue the return to Mali. But even so, he remained one of the richest rulers in the world. As the caravan approached West Africa, an important piece of news arrived. According to reports, one of his generals succeeded against the Songhai and captured the city of Gao, an important trading center in the region. For Musa, this victory was extremely important, not only because it increased his territory, but also because it further strengthened Mali's control over the trade routes in West Africa. Because of this, he changed his route home and went directly to Gao. There, he personally oversaw the agreement with the defeated leaders. Instead of destroying their government, he allowed them to manage some local affairs while remaining under the authority of the Mali Empire. This was a method that Musa often used. He preferred to have loyalty and stability rather than endless war. And as he approached his capital, it became clearer to everyone that he was no longer just a wealthy king. Mansa Musa was now a leader recognized throughout Africa and much of the known world during his time. After Mali captured Gao, Mansa Musa gained more than just territory. He also gained control over the more important trade routes in Gao, and Musa noticed the city's old mosque. According to records, he was not satisfied with its appearance, so he had a stronger and more beautiful building constructed. This is where the style of Malian architecture became more well-known. The walls were thick, made of mud, wood, fiber, and other materials that were easy to find in the area. The appearance was simple, but it was sturdy and suited for the hot climate of West Africa. From Gao, Musa continued to Timbuktu, and here his ambitions grew even bigger. He saw that Timbuktu was not an ordinary city. It was close to the Niger River. Traders passed through here, and it was a good place to turn into a center of trade, religion, and education. So under Musa, Timbuktu was further developed. He built mosques, schools, and buildings that would become important in the history of Mali. One of the most well-known is the Jinguereber Mosque, which is still considered an important part of Timbuktu's history today. Education in the city also flourished. Scholars, teachers, experts in law, mathematics, astronomy, and Islamic studies arrived. Because of this, Timbuktu was no longer just a place of trade. It also became a center of knowledge. When Musa returned to the capital of Niani, the people welcomed him like a hero. He brought with him not only the story of his Hajj, he also brought new ideas from Egypt, Arabia, and North Africa. He used these to improve his empire. He built mosques, he strengthened education, and he opened Mali even more to connections with other parts of the world. But as Mali grew stronger, more foreigners became interested in its wealth, especially in its gold. When Musa was asked where Mali's vast amount of gold came from, he never answered directly. According to some stories, he would say that gold grows like a plant in a secret place. This wasn't meant to be taken literally. It's like a polite way of telling foreigners, don't meddle with where we get our gold from. Musa knew that if other kingdoms found out the exact location of the mines, it could be dangerous for Mali. Mansa Musa died around the 1330s. The exact year and cause of his death are unclear because old records differ. His son Magan succeeded him, but Magan's leadership was not as strong as his father's. Problems with security gradually arose. Some areas rebelled, enemy groups attacked, and the cities that used to be safe during Musa's time started to become weak. After Magan, Musa's brother Suleiman also ruled. During his time, Mali remained important, but the first signs of decline could already be seen. There were conflicts within the royal family. Some provincial leaders wanted to break away, and eventually neighboring kingdoms emerged. They began to take lands from Mali. Over the centuries, the power of the empire gradually diminished. The once powerful Mali was gradually divided into smaller governments, and its capital, Niani, was eventually attacked and burned. This marked the end of the golden age of the Mali Empire. But the name of Mansa Musa did not disappear. Even today, he is known as one of the richest people in history. There are modern estimates that say if compared to today's money, his wealth could be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. But it's very important to remember that these numbers are not exact. It's difficult to measure the wealth of a king from the medieval period, especially if the basis is old stories, gold trading, and records written many years after his life. What we can be sure of is this: Mali was extremely wealthy, Musa's influence was immense, and his Hajj introduced Mali to a wider world. In 1375, the Catalan Atlas appeared, one of the most important maps of the Middle Ages. There, Mansa Musa was depicted holding gold. This means that even long after his death, he was still known in distant places as the king of a land rich in gold. But Mansa Musa's legacy was not just wealth. He strengthened trade, he developed Timbuktu, he valued education, and he showed that Africa back then had empires with their own systems, knowledge, architecture, and power. So when we hear the name Mansa Musa, we shouldn't just think of gold. We should also remember a leader who used his wealth to strengthen his empire, connect Mali to the world, and leave a legacy that is still talked about today.